Welcome to the Donna Seebo Show. Donna is an international mental practitioner, psychic, award-winning author, counselor, speaker, teacher, and radio television talk show personality. She brings to the airwaves talented people from around the world who share their insights and experiences with you, the listening audience. Now, let's join Donna.
Hello. Oh, my goodness, I hope wherever you are, the weather is just absolutely fabulous here in the Pacific Northwest. Oh, we've got a golden glow that's shining through the trees. I love summertime. It's so nice after all the drippy seasons we have. Well, we've got a great show ahead for you, and I want you to know we are going to be talking about a subject matter that some of you, when you hear the term exercise, may just go, please, Donna, I get this stuff from so many different angles, but what if you learned about a process called deep fitness that would enable you, using just 30 minutes a week, would enable you to become stronger? Am I making this up? Heavens no. We are going to be talking with two gentlemen, Philip Shepard and Andrei Yakovenko, and you're going to find that each of these men have followed a phenomenal journey, and they're in Toronto, Canada, and because of the magic of technology, we are able to share information about them and their brand new publication called Deep Fitness. The subtitle to this book is The Mindful Science-Based Strength Training Method to Transform Your Well-Being in Just 30 Minutes a Week. Are you up for something that is really powerful to know about? I hope so, because it can make a difference for you. It can make a difference for your kids if they're involved in sports. I'm not kidding, but anybody and everybody all the way up to someone that's in their senior years, and your age does not make a difference. You can improve your strength and stamina regardless. Philip and Andrei, I want to welcome you to the show.
Pleasure to be here, Donna. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Donna.
The two of you, respectively, have both had a passion for wellness. And Andrei, I'd like to start with you because you're originally from the Ukraine. And you ended up going to Israel, and then you ended up coming to the United States with less than $5 in your pocket. Now, you've got to tell us something about that journey.
Well, how much time, do we have?
Well, we want to talk about some other things, so let's give it a couple of minutes.
So, basically, I left Ukraine in 1995, and I was 20 years old. Kind of just packed my suitcase and went to Israel, and because of my Jewish roots, and they gave me citizenship. That was my ticket out of that country. And 3 years after that, I met my what's now wife, fiancée, and then we came to Canada. And then I decided to go back to school in Canada. I finished University of Toronto, then went for a graduate school at McMaster University, and ended up building a career in geophysics. And at some point, as I was working out, going to the regular gym like everybody else, I had a question: what's the science of building muscle? At that time, I was just interested in what's the most efficient, effective, science-based way to build muscle. And after doing some research, I came across the method that essentially our book, The Fitness, is based on, which is you can build muscles effectively in as little as 30 minutes, once or twice a week. And I put that kind of training to test, and I saw some amazing results with some friends. And after doing some additional research, I decided to leave my field of geophysics, where I built my career, and do something completely different. And I opened New Element Training, which would be now about 10 years ago. And, here we are having this conversation, talking about our book.
Amazing. Now, Philip, you have been recognized in what's described as the global embodiment movement, and you've developed what's called the embodied present process. What is that?
Oh, it's a good question. You know, we take for granted that we live in our heads, and it's where we, you know, hold our brains. It's where we see from, where we hear from. But our bodies actually process over 1 billion times more information than we can be consciously aware of. And we have left our bodies as a culture, and so we sit on top of them the way you'd sit on top of a donkey and make it do things and go harder. And my work for years and years, you know, as a teenager, I went to Japan and studied classical Japanese theater, and their deepest intelligence they recognized to be in their belly. And so for, you know, the process of my life, of coming back to my life and myself, I've been very fortunate in finding my way back to my body in such a way that I can feel myself in my wholeness. I can speak from my wholeness. I can think with the whole of my being. And so when I was introduced to Andrei's work, I was coming to this already from an embodied, mindful place. And his work with the gym and the half-hour a week, and my work, which really, you know, the embodied present process is really about honoring the body's intelligence and how it works hand in hand with the world around you. You know, we don't stand separate from the world. We are infiltrated by it. It's affecting us in every moment, even as we're affecting it. And to bring that into the workout and find, you know, in the middle of the workout, I am as alive as I am at any other time during my week, probably quite a bit more alive. And so it's something I come back to and come back to and come back to because it is such a joy.
I was really intrigued at the beginning of your book that there is a comment that says fitness starts with muscle. And that muscle is, and I'm quoting from your book, muscle is the basic mechanical system that our hearts, lungs, blood vessels, and energy metabolism are serving. Andrei, when you were doing your research, and you both of you bring up different studies and environments of knowledge that have been developed that are actually showing that theories that were, let's say, promoted in the 60s, even before then, and you think of people like Jack LaLanne and Paul Bragg, who were very much into the muscle fitness and good food, and there are other people, but those individuals typically are recognized as the pioneers, especially in the state of California, especially, and that's where I'm from. They were recognized as the pioneers that really were getting a lot of publicity. But what you've discovered, and Andrei, you really know how to work with this, as do you, Philip. But there's this understanding of the value of the muscle. And when you were finding research, Andrei, and you were going to the gym and you find out all of this different research about how important it is to develop the strength in muscles, what was one of the key factors that you learned about working muscles? Because when people say, gee, develop muscle, they often think of somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, but very few of us are going to look like him, males especially. Very few. There are some, but a lot of people aren't going to do that. So let's get some information on that.
Yes. So the old kind of notion is, people who would, do strength training, lift weights back in the day, would be athletes and essentially bodybuilders, right? Mm-hmm. The gyms, even as an industry, 20, 30 years ago didn't, 40 years ago didn't even exist as such. They would have this kind of basement gyms where guys would go and, lift heavy weights, and, they would have different aerobic types kind of classes for women. Today, thanks to all the research and all the science that came out, in the past 5, 10, 15 years, we appreciate that muscle is a bedrock of our well-being, our health span, which is, healthy years in our life, and as well as longevity. And the thing is, we're beginning to lose lean muscle tissue earlier than people realize. It starts in about around 30th birthday. And, we lose it slowly but surely. When you look at the research, some papers suggest it could be as much as half a pound of lean tissue loss a year from roughly 30th birthday, and that almost doubles once you get to the 50s and beyond. So muscle, it's important. It's a structural tissue, physical performance tissue, metabolic tissue. But those scientists discovered that when we work out the muscle releases these little chemical messengers. They call them myokines. Myo stands for muscles, kines for messengers. And these myokines, they act like hormones. They crosstalk to the rest of the body. The brain has myokine receptors. The heart has myokine receptors. The bones, etc., and so on and so forth. All the organ tissue has myokine receptors. And essentially, these myokines that muscle generates due to exercise, they upregulate the health and function of all the organ tissue, essentially make the organ tissue function better and younger. So all combined, the fact that we lose lean tissue, the fact that we don't have to actually, you can stimulate lean tissue still at any age, doesn't matter how old you are, people in the 90s can still build muscle. We exercise and nutrition. And once you take care of that organ of longevity, our lean tissue muscle, not only you look better in the mirror, become a better athlete, you invest in your health and even longevity. So anybody who is over age of 40, in our opinion, should be doing strength training, not because necessarily they love doing it, just because they have to. If you don't, it doesn't matter how fit you are. If you, at some point, once you get to the 50s, 60s, and Philip probably can attest to it, it's not enough to go for a run. It's not enough to go on a bike ride. You're gradually and surely going to be losing lean tissue. But with proper application of strength training, it completely changes trajectory of your remaining years. And essentially, I found over the years, working with clients, working with Philip, is that we're not really today as much as focused on, looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. We're doing it for the main purposes of health and function, and longevity. Maybe Philip can add more to it, but kind of.
Well, what I want to do, Philip, before we get into that, I want to mention something that is very clearly stated in your book, is that over 2,500 years ago, there was an ancient person who said exercise is absolutely necessary. Now, if you think about that, this is something that has been promoted. And in our world today, people are in offices. They're sitting for longer hours. I mean, I have been astonished that I find just even in my own neighborhood, people that have families, their children aren't outside playing. They're inside on computers. They're not out climbing trees. They're not out playing with friends and developing whatever you can develop, but being physically active. And so many of our young people are being in that positioning of, oh, gee, you shouldn't do this, and they're so locked into their computers. And this is having a very big effect on the health. What are the stats that are being presented? You have them in here about Britain. I was appalled when I read what the stats are after they did a study on how there's muscle loss in young children that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, and you compare kids today with the same measurements that were applied to kids like 40 years ago, and in young kids you see that significant weakening relative to what was the standard some decades ago. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It starts at a young age, and the thing is that whatever age you are, you can decide to get stronger, and even if you give it half an hour once a week, that is enough if you're going about it in the way that actually stimulates muscle growth. And just to say, Andrei said you can bike and you can walk and still you're losing muscle. And the reason for that is that there are basically two types of muscle fiber. One is the endurance fibers that go forever and ever and don't get tired but don't have a lot of explosive strength. And then there are the powerhouse muscles that have phenomenal strength, but they don't last long. And then they take a longer time to recover. And those powerhouse muscles, they're the largest muscles in the body. And if you're not exhausting the endurance muscles, if you're not taking them to failure, to where they have to enlist the other muscles, the powerhouse muscles can go unengaged. And so that's why they get weaker and weaker. Even though you're walking 5 miles every day, you're losing muscle mass. And so that the very specialized workout that we talk about in the book is one that moves against resistance. Whether you're doing it at home or in a gym, you're moving against resistance very, very slowly. And that makes it very safe. It's when there's an impulse, a shock to the joints that we tend to get injured. And so you're moving it slowly, and you just keep moving it until you can't move it anymore, until you reach the point where the muscle has reached momentary failure. And when that happens, when the muscle gets to that point where it can't do any more work, the whole body gets the message that the environment is presenting challenges that we're not strong enough to meet. And so, through our evolution, our body has learned to rally and build that muscle stronger so the next time we meet that challenge, we'll be able to. And so that's why this workout is so effective, because it takes the muscles to failure in a very safe way, and that's all you need to stimulate the body to grow those muscles and make them stronger.
You talk about micro trauma, and and using the word exhaustion. Immediately, I think when people hear that term, it's like, uh-oh, that's a danger thing to do. But it is teaching the muscle that it can move forward. And the term microdrama, I learned a lot of new terms I didn't even know anything about, and that's one of them. But microdrama to the muscle, which is that exhaustion level, says that what the body does is that it repairs the damage. It's supposed to repair the damage, but it also remodels the muscle, and the muscle gets stronger. And you have a wonderful story in here about Milo of Croton. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But he was in the 6th century BCE, and he used a calf. I thought, that is really something. When did he start? About 6 years of age?
Well, he was an adult, but there was a calf, an ox calf, and it only weighed, 15, 20 pounds, and he lifted it every day, and the calf grew bigger and bigger as they tend to do, and because Milo was lifting it every single day, his body was adapting so that here's this full-grown ox, and he can lift it off the ground, and that's the principle of continuously challenging the muscles. So you're not just maintaining the muscles at a plateau of strength. You're actually every time stimulating them with that micro trauma to remodel and get stronger. And it's not getting stronger for the sake of being stronger, even though that would be enough. But as Andrei said, muscle has two primary functions, which we've only just discovered in the past 15 years, that yes, muscle moves the body around, but it creates these messenger molecules that promote health in every organ, every tissue, and actually reverse the aging at a cellular level.
That's amazing. Andrei, because you have your training environments, there have been studies that have been done relative to what you have been working with for so many years. And in the book, you say how people, even if they're obese, if they follow the protocols, diabetes, their sugar, glucose levels, etc., all improve. They may not lose a whole bunch of weight, but because of the activation of the muscles, then that creates a chemical change. The body's utilizing what is being taken in, and gee whiz, this is incredible. And there's all kinds of information relative to this, and I think it's so very, very important. Let's go into how it helps not just diabetic individuals. I mean, you're going to have to do the work, but you don't have to do a whole bunch of it. And cancer, you've got information on cancer here. You've got it on arthritis, which just thrilled me. I know so many people, young, middle-aged, and old, that have arthritis, and the fact that this could even help with something like that. Share some of your information relative to that.
Yes. So let's talk about, type 2 diabetes. And essentially, as we get older, we all kind of become sort of on a spectrum of insulin resistance, right? More or less. We're not going to be as sensitive to insulin as, when we were kids. And then in the worst case, we develop type 2 diabetes. One of the issues with that, essentially, it's a disease where cells, our muscle cells, not sensitive to insulin anymore. They cannot uptake the sugar from the blood that we consume from the food and have excess of sugar, which is toxic, hence type 2 diabetes. When we do strength training, a couple things happen. One, as Philip mentioned, we enlist these powerhouse fibers, the so-called fast twitch fibers. These fibers are structurally the largest fibers in the body. So the more we grow muscle tissue, lean tissue, essentially we expand the insulin sensors on our muscle cells. So we have more sensors to uptake and deal with that sugar that circulates in our blood. Another aspect of during the actual workout, the more intensely we slowly but surely and safely, but still intensely, with intensity of effort, we contract the muscle, the more adrenaline the body will release. The more adrenaline the body releases, the exponentially more we will deplete a so-called glycogen out of the muscle. So what glycogen is basically any carbohydrates or sugars we consume is going to end up as glucose in the blood. And the way the body stores that glucose is in a form of glycogen. It makes this basically chain of glucose and puts it in the muscle. So when we work out and we intensely contract the muscle, and the more adrenaline we're releasing, the exponentially more we're emptying that storage of glycogen, which makes our cells, particularly muscle cells, really, really sensitive to uptaking the sugar from the blood, because now the body needs to replenish that energy. The main source of energy when we do strength training is glycogen, is glucose, is sugar, right? So during the process of the workout, we profoundly kind of dumping the storage of sugar from our body, from the muscle. And in the long term, as the body adapts, we grow more muscles, meaning we're creating more insulin sensors for future to uptake that glucose. Now, saying all that in terms of, just people who have issue with prediabetes, diabetes, it's all great, but, there is a saying, you cannot out-exercise a bad diet. So, yes, from one end, it's super important to enlist your muscles in an effective way on a regular basis. On the other hand, you also have to watch what you eat, right? If you eat nothing but carbs all day long and sugar, you cannot really, yes, strength training will help you, but it's not going to solve the problem. To solve the problem, you have to go on some form of low carbohydrate diet, to do strength training, particularly the one we advocate. And what happens, it's pretty much diabetes like diabetes 2 goes into remission if you do it long enough, 6 months, 3, 4, 6, a year. It's a kind of disease that could be healed. Another, when you're talking about, cancer and arthritis, we mentioned these myokines, and essentially these chemical messengers the body releases. There is one specific myokine that in acute form is pro-inflammatory, so-called interleukin-6. But when we spike it, as exercise is pro-inflammatory, right? That myokine on the back end activates anti-inflammatory myokines. So basically exercise, particularly strength training for sure, what it does, it lowers our chronic inflammation. So our inflammation is lower. And as we know, chronic inflammation is a precursor, it's a common denominator to all the chronic diseases of aging, right? Diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular risk factor, and so on. So, and, arthritis included. So that's kind of one example how properly engaging in yourself in strength training, your health, there is no aspect in your health that somehow wouldn't have a positive effect on you.
I find that the research that you have with West Point, now this is a military environment, and this is something that is just amazing. And Philip, what have they found in utilizing the principles that you and Andrei have developed relative to young men and women and increasing their strength? I found the study was extraordinarily interesting. Actually, there were multiple studies they did. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, they have a real commitment to knowing what works. And, of course, they want their cadets to be as strong as possible, as fit as possible. And so, they had this really compelling study where they had about 60 different measurements of fitness, from, oxygen uptake to strength to flexibility. And there were two groups. There was one group that just continued doing the regular exercise that was the tradition at West Point. And then there was this other group that did this very intense form of exercise to failure a few times a week. And I forget how long the study went for, 6 weeks is my memory. But at the end of the study, they compared the two groups, and on every single measurement, including cardiovascular, the group that had done the strength training, slow strength training to failure, had improved significantly more than the group that had just done the forms of exercise that West Point was used to. It's not that most of the measurements were an improvement. Every single one was better. And the reason, you might think, well, how did the cardiovascular fitness improve? And if you're doing this slow training to failure and you move from one machine to the next within 30 seconds, your heart is supplying a lot of oxygen to your muscles to make them work. So if the time between your exercises is limited, you have a phenomenal cardiovascular benefit as a result.
Wow. That would make such a difference with so many people. And also, you bring up a school and this was a weightlifting team at DeLand High School in Florida, and it made such a difference incorporating this kind of training with these young people. I was astonished. They won all kinds of competition because they weren't depleted of their strength by the time that they got to that competitive environment. And so often it has been the principle of we've got to keep training, and it works opposite. with a lot of people. This is profound. It really, really is profound.
There's a sorry to interrupt, but there's a feeling that when we're exercising, we're getting stronger, and the reality is, as you're exercising, you're getting weaker. You get stronger in the days after you've exercised, when the muscle is remodeling. So, it's not that when we say once or twice a week, we're not minimizing it. That is the optimum amount of exercise, because the muscles require 2 to 3 days to go through that remodeling. And if the remodeling is interrupted, the muscles actually stop getting stronger. And so, yeah, that rest is essential.
Now, in your book, I found it very interesting. Andrei, there are the exercises that if people go to gyms, and fortunately we're past the COVID scenario where people can go to gyms, but you give very specific illustrations with the machines and instructions. And then also there are those exercises that people can do at home. If they choose not to go to the gym, they can do it by themselves. All of this is so very, very significant. How would you recommend, Andrei, someone starting out working with the exercise section in the back of the book? Now, you're very familiar. You have machines that you work with. You also work with the other aspect. How would you encourage a person to begin? And what's the regimen? I know you go into a number of different aspects in the book, but can you give a suggestion to my audience?
Yeah, for sure. So, just a little background. Before COVID, before the pandemic, we only use machines. And over the years, by working with clients day in, day out, I kind of came to the conclusion, this training that we advocate in the book and at New Element Training really comes down to this basic 3-4 principles. If we understand these principles, frankly, it doesn't really matter as much which tool you use. A machine is just a tool. We happen to have the best medical-grade tools. But the body weight is also a tool. A resistance band is also a tool. So if you understand the 3-4 foundational principles, and we talk about them, I don't want to go too much into those details, it's in the book, you understand this training and you can apply it using it any tools. And when we went into the lockdown during the pandemic, I thought, okay, so we cannot see people in person, but what happens if we apply our principles and use body weight and resistance band? So I did that, and we started coaching people online. And it was phenomenal. I think we were initially for 7 months in the lockdown, and some people did virtual training with us, supervised by one of the trainers, and some didn't. And after the lockdown, when they opened us again and people returned for in-person training, I tested. I wanted to see what happened to your strength during this time. So every client who did the virtual training with us using the body weight and resistance band, as we outlined in the book, I give them the weight they did 7 months ago as if they never left. They didn't lose any strength whatsoever. Clients who didn't do virtual, they couldn't do those weights that they used to do before the pandemic. We had to reduce those weights, quite significantly, 20-30%. So that's kind of the background where these body weight exercises came from. And in the book, we didn't want to make book too big and too thick, so we just show some examples. There are 2-3 different mostly body weight and resistance-based routines that anybody can just read the training principles first, and then just go, and we in detail explain how to perform every exercise. And everybody, just if they pay attention to those cues, those details, can give this training a try. Another good source is on our website of our company, New Element NewElementTraining.com, we offer a video library. It's like a subscription for something like $9 or something Canadian dollars a month. And we provide access to all the exercises that we mention in the book in a video format. So then that's another very good resource for somebody to go and learn how to do it there. The best resource from all of them, we do offer, virtual training. If somebody really wants to try this workout with, an expert, again, if they go to our website, NewElementTraining.com, they can book a complimentary introductory session. We start with initial chat just to learn about each other, overviewing those key guiding principles of this training, and then we can schedule you for kind of one-on-one coaching as well. So that would be the approach, the way to how to approach it.
Well, Philip and Andrei, you have put together a book that I think is just so wonderful because it gives people an understanding of how they don't have to be in the gym every other day. They don't have to go and do 500 push-ups every other day. And like you say, the muscles need to have a chance to rest so that it can repair and re-sculpt what it needs to do for strength and stamina. Deep Fitness, your book is just loaded with all kinds of research, good information, the illustrations, the machines, those exercises you can do at home. All of this is just amazing. Now, I'm going to mention your website again. You've mentioned it a couple of times, Andrei. I want to repeat it. That's the NewElementTraining.com. And there are videos, as you said, that are on that website. And then also there's deepfitness.life. Deepfitness.life. And Philip Shepard and Andrei Yakovenko, I just think that what you've accomplished here is outstanding, and I'm so thrilled that we've had this chance for conversation. Anything that allows us to learn how to keep our chassis in good condition, I think it's marvelous. But to be able to do it with 30 minutes a week, that almost sounds too good to be true, but it's not. And you take all the fable or what somebody might call the woo-woo stuff out. This is real scientific information. Thank you for being my guests.
It has been such a pleasure, Donna. Thank you so much.
I wish
Thank you so much, Donna. It was my pleasure as well.
I wish you nothing but continued success. Thank you again. This is Donna Seebo. We are saying goodbye to Philip and Andrei. And again, check out their websites, NewElementTraining.com and DeepFitness.life. Don't forget those videos are on NewElementTraining.com. We're taking a break. We're going to be back in just a little bit. And when we come back, I'll have some more good things to share. Isn't it wonderful we have people like this that can say, this is what we found, this is what we can do. Oh my goodness, it gives us such an option no matter what your age is. And if you're a coach, hey, you got something here to work with your students, and it will produce some pretty positive things. And if you're elderly, don't think you have to be a weakling. It's not required. The Donna Seebo Show is heard weekdays, Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 p.m. Pacific Time. Callers are welcome to call in during the second half of the program at 253-582-5597. Please note that the announcement is made at the bottom of the hour if I'm not in studio able to take phone calls. Warriors for Peace is heard every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. For current information regarding my email newsletter, programming, and appearances, go to DelphiInternational.com. For information on publications, including my award-winning children's books, audiobooks, and more, go to MrsSeebo'sClassics.com. This is Donna Seebo. If you or someone you know is an author and would like to be interviewed on the Donna Seebo Show or Warriors for Peace, please send a copy of the publication along with contact information, phone number, email, and website to the Donna Seebo Show, P.O. Box 99015, Lakewood, Washington 98496. That's the Donna Seebo Show, P.O. Box 99015, Lakewood, Washington 98496. Please allow 6 to 8 weeks for review. Thank you. Well, we've got one more show, and this is very special as far as I'm concerned, and that is the last show for June. And that's tomorrow evening, and it is the audio portion of my television show, my very first television show, and this is about human trafficking. It's almost a full hour. There is no break in conversation with my guests, and it is going to be the full hour of the show. So I wanted to let you know about that. And also, I want to tell those of you that were perhaps out at the Poodle Dog restaurant, I was supposed to speak last evening. There was an emergency and the whole event had to be canceled. So that was something I learned about at the last minute, if you will. And fortunately, the emergency it ended up with good news and not with bad news, which was very, very good. But I wanted to let you know that I am going to be at the Spectrum next Wednesday. And the reason this was done is because of the cancellation of the event. They were able to open it up for next Wednesday. So on the 5th of July, yes, the day after Independence Day, I am going to be giving a talk and presentation there at the Poodle Dog in Fife, and I'll be there probably between 4:30 and 5 o'clock. Maybe I'll even be there earlier, depending on traffic. So I just want to let you know about that. Sometimes life throws boomerangs into your environment, and what do? Hey, you just go with the flow and say, all right, let's see what's next. And that is the truth of it. So having a little experience of having situations like this occur in my life more than once, well, that's what we do. We're going to start off the month of July, and we're going to be discovering the nature of longevity with Douglas Mulhall. And then I'm going to have a holiday program for the 4th, and I realize for many of you, by the time that I go on air, you either will just beginning to see the fireworks of wherever you're celebrating, or maybe you're going to bed because you've already been through them. But anyway, we are going to have a special program for the 4th of July. And then Phil Webster, we're going to be traveling to England to talk with him about letting glow. And this is about an awareness that Phil discovered that changed his life, and then Love Letters to Water. This is a beautiful publication. Claude Morgan participated along with a number of other people around the world communicating what I consider is really some beautifully written, wonderful, thoughtful aspects and images, imaginings. It's just a wonderful, wonderful book, Love Letters to Water. And then something I never ever thought I would hear from a chiropractor. Dr. Metzger is going to be my guest. And he said, well, you can adjust yourself and avoid seeing a chiropractor. Now, how often do you see a chiropractor or hear a chiropractor saying something like that? Well, that's it. But how do you know about who's coming up on my show? Sign up for my newsletter. When you go into my website, DelphiInternational.com, when you go in there, when you go into my show page, there is a little message that pops up. If you want to get the monthly newsletter, you sign up for it there. And you will have the information about the upcoming guests, and you will have so much more that is there concerning my appearances, broadcasts, all kinds of information that is available. And this is wonderful. The newsletter is something I've been doing for many years, and people have enjoyed it. They submit sometimes things that they come across, and I share those with you. And I think it's just my way of communicating. I don't do a lot of blogging. I've got an assistant. She takes care of my social media postings, and I just don't have enough hours in the day. Let's face it. I've got 6 radio shows a week, and now I'm doing a television show a month. Believe me, that's a big schedule. So it involves a lot of work, a lot of adaptations, speaking engagements, and writing, and doing some other things. So I don't get bored. That's right. because I find life so interesting. And I would like to think that maybe when you listen to this show and you hear my different guests and you hear different perspectives, you hear their stories. Sometimes those stories are so tragic. Other times they are amazingly miraculous. There's just so much in life that you can look forward to, that you can enjoy. And if you buy in to all of the what do I want to say here? The downsizers, the doom and gloom, the apocalyptic kind of attitudes. Well, we're coming to the end of the world. Well, as someone once said many times to me at different points of conversation, our worlds die all the time. And what does that mean? That means that there are cycles in your life where you're going to find that certain things are no longer going to exist. You're going to have eras that die in your life. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. And we moan and groan about what we wish we could still have instead of looking at what we do have and looking at how we can be better. I've encountered people in my life that when I would give them suggestions or information, the first response was, no, don't bother me. That's not going to make any difference. I am not going to be interested in it all. And that's fine. That's their privilege. But how sad that is. My goodness. We would still be perhaps eating worms. That thought is just totally repulsive to me. But hey, there are people in this world, that's what they do to get their protein. They eat caterpillars, they eat all kinds of things because they don't have an understanding that there are different ways they can do what they are able to do. And it's just like my guests in talking about the body working, the muscles, how you can develop a strength that you would never have imagined you could have developed. And hey, gals, this is important for you. Being a woman, being a mature woman, I have found that when I don't exercise, and during the COVID period, I was not exercising to the degree that I had been prior. And I found that I went out just for a walk, and it was amazing how my muscles said, excuse me, let's go back and sit down again. I go, wait a minute, what's wrong? I'm strong, I'm healthy, but those muscles had lost their stamina. So what you do is that you get the body moving. You get it moving. You get going. It's the same thing with your mind, with your belief systems, with biases. You must look, and I say must, if you want to have a life that is going to be fulfilling to you. You're not just one component of anything. You're multiple. You're mind, body, spirit, and emotion. You've got all of that good stuff to work with. And what you feed yourself to nourish your body is one thing. What you work with your body to maintain your strength is another thing. But what do you feed your mind with? What kind of nourishment are you giving your mind? And I can tell you that just in the past week, and this happens to me frequently, I will encounter individuals, whether they come to me for private sessions or not, it doesn't make any difference. And they will look at things and say, well, that's just the way it is. The Walter Cronkite special, and that's the way it is. No. We can look at something and we can view it a certain way, but how many times do we flip it over, go on its side, upside down, and look at it from different angles? And ask ourselves, if this is what I'm seeing, what are the other options? And that is important. And that's what we forget. I have to remind myself, and I'm reminded every day, because of the wonderful people that I encounter in doing this programming. The people that have been so enthusiastic and so very, very supportive of what I do, that they say, I want to do this, I want to show you this, I want to share this with you, and it is so important. There are many, many ways that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish for ourselves. And that's on a personal level, that's on a professional level, that's on a spiritual level, that's on an emotional level. And this is something we need to remember. It is so important for us to invest in ourselves. And you're going to have a lot of people out there that are going to say you should only do one thing, or this is the arena you need to focus on. Don't worry about the other. This is what you need to focus on. In some respects, that may be correct, but you're a total package. So never forget that you need to nourish your emotions the right way. You need to nourish your mind, your processes of thinking and analysis. You need to be curious and excited about learning new things. And physically, you need to honor the body that you have. You know, in the Bible, it says your body is a temple. And when I read that as a kid, I said, it's not a temple. What's a temple? What's this? When I was a kid, didn't make sense to me. Didn't take me long, though, to find out really what was meant by that. And this is something that down deep has been very important. Well, we're coming into an understanding that instead of waiting until we get sick to go to a doctor and get a bunch of medicines or whatever it takes, if we look at ourselves and say, my model of this physical chassis, for example, my body chemistry is different, I am different from my next door neighbor, from my kids or whatever, but you look at yourself and you say, I want to do the best I possibly can. So you start investigating nutrition. You start investigating exercise. You start investigating self-improvement on so many different ways. You've got an adventure just with yourself. And when you can bring in people that are supportive of you in the right way, not because they're wanting to use you or manipulate you, but because they really want to see you be the best you can be. And when you have that kind of support, oh my goodness, you're a winner. You have got so much going for you. And it's right there. You've got the tools to achieve what you want. And you don't have to be alone in your journey. Don't be afraid to ask for help or to go to your library. You know, your library is one of your richest resources that you possibly could ever utilize. And librarians, oh my goodness, these are very special people. And they really know their stuff. That's why reading is so important. I wouldn't have been able to have a conversation with either one of these gentlemen without reading what it was that they were sharing in the way of information. And it's wonderful that this information crossed my path in life because I'm able to share it with you. I'm able to share it via technology, and it is marvelous. It's because of our willingness to read, explore, try things out, find out what's going to work best for us. This is all an individual journey, and it is so worth taking it. It really is. And it saddens me when I hear these naysayers that are out in life, and that's all they can do is tell you what's not working. Oh, by the way, I want to remind you, don't forget to check out the Authors Showcase, and we have got a very, very special guest that is going to be on Warriors for Peace, and that information, all of that is going to be in my newsletter. So the newsletter comes out on the 1st, and just know that it's there for you. It'll be also situated and present on my website. You can go in 24/7 to the website. And the player, that runs 24/7 as well. And then archives. You can go into the archives and listen to any interview that is there. And soon, we're going to have the videos of my television shows. We're putting together the links right now. My webmaster was absolutely swamped with work, so we're a little bit behind. However, it's going to be up there. And those links and that information is going to be in my video section, both on the website and also on YouTube. And I am really excited about all of this because it's an expansion of this show. What good is knowledge if you're not able to share it? I mean, really. This is something where I can remember a very lovely woman. She was a very, very special lady to me. Her name was Rose. And Rose had been very, very successful with a restaurant. And she used to tell me, and she had an Italian restaurant. She said, oh, my sauce was loved by everybody. And she said, I had a secret and she wouldn't share it with anyone. Well, when I met Rose, she had retired. She no longer was running the restaurant. And when she would say this to me, because I always enjoyed cooking, and I was quite young, I was in my 20s at the time when I met her, and she was in her 70s, I believe. And I said to her one day, I said, Rose, you don't want to tell people your secret? Because the people would go to the restaurant. They want to know what it was that made her sauce so magical. And she said, nope, not going to do that. I refused to give it away because if I gave it away, too many people would copy it and it would never work. Imagine my surprise when one day she said, I'll share it with you. The secret to her sauce was sugar. And I'm sharing that because Rose has been gone for many, many years. But you know what? I learned later that that wasn't a secret. But Rose had been raised in an environment where so much had been taken from her in so many different situations. And that was the one little thing that there was the illusion about. That's nothing new. Italians have been putting sugar in their spaghetti sauce forever. And do you know why they do it? It's not because sugar is bad, and it doesn't make a sweet sauce. What it does, it neutralizes the acidic composition of the tomatoes. That sugar takes away the cutting negatives of tomatoes. And it really works. And it's not a secret, because like I said, a lot of Italians already had been doing that. And every time I think of Rose, I think of how generous she always was with me and how she was under the misconception that what she did was a secret when it really wasn't. There's an odd thing that occurs in the universe. When one person gets a concept or an idea, it's as if there's an invisible telepathic communication with people around the world. And you know what happens? This is so significant. Other people have the same idea, and they don't even have to be within 10,000 miles of each other. They're thinking the same thing. It's a phenomena that's absolutely amazing to be aware of. The only reason that the telephone system in the United States was called the Bell system, it could have been called the Valentine system, but it was called the Bell system because Alexander Graham Bell got to the patent office just a short time before Valentine did. And do you know, Valentine and others, there were people in South America and in other places in the world come up with the exact same concept as Alexander Bell did. But he was the one that got to the patent office first. Amazing what history teaches you. So just be aware, yes, patents have their place. But remember, the truth is, there's no such thing as a secret in the universe. No. It is known already by others, and that may come as a surprise, but it is true. Donna Seebo here. Remember always that you're the master of your fate. You are the captain of your soul, not somebody else. Don't turn your life over to other people. Invest in you. You're worth that. And just think, when you invest in you and your star shines, you're going to be able to share that light with a lot of other people. Keep it turned on. We need as much of it as possible. Bye for now.
You've been listening to The Donna Seebo Show. We're delighted that you were able to join us and invite you to tell your friends and family about the program. Have a wonderful day.